A $60,000 annual budget requires about $1.5 million under the 4% rule. But Morningstar's updated number for 2026 is actually 3.9%. And that's up from 3.7% in 2025, which tells you these targets are moving, not fixed. That pushes your number to roughly 1.54 million for the same income. Meanwhile, the average Canadian thinks they only need about $846,000 to retire independently, according to an RBC poll. So there's already a gap before you even factor in how long you'll actually live. That gap gets bigger the longer your retirement runs, and the biggest thing that blows up in the math isn't inflation, but bad returns. It's selling your portfolio when it's already down, which is what sequence of returns risk does to early retirees. I'm going to show you the cash buffer system that stops that from happening, and why getting the right account matters just as much as hitting the right number. Hi, Kane again. I was a theater grad that started with nothing. 20 years later, I own properties throughout Ontario. Be sure to watch my biography video to see my struggles. Read the description below to review the references that were used in this video. If there are any discrepancies, please let me know. The information here is for educational purposes only. If you are going to make any investment decisions, please speak to a licensed professional first. Without further ado, let's get started. A lot of Canadians chasing early retirement track their net worth. And that number feels good until you realize your paid-off house can't cover a single grocery run. Net worth includes your home, your car, whatever physical assets you own, and none of that generates income without you selling something first. What actually matters is your investable capital, the money sitting in accounts that pay you without you liquidating a physical asset. And that pool needs to be large enough to fund 30 or 40 years of withdrawals starting the day you stop working. So, let's talk about what that number actually looks like. A $60,000 a year lifestyle needs $1.5 million under the 4% rule, but Morningstar updated the 2026 figure drops the safe withdrawal rate to 3.9%, which pushes the same target to roughly $1.54 million. And if you're planning a 45-year retirement, some planners are already recommending 3.5 or lower, which means you need 1.7 million to fund that same $60,000 annual spend. That's a $200,000 gap compared to the number most people quote, and that comes from living longer, not from spending more. The two accounts doing the heaviest lifting in any Canadian early retirement plan are the RRSP and the TFSA, and they work in a specific order. You load the RRSP hard during your highest earning years because every dollar you contribute reduces your taxable income when your marginal rate is at its peak. Then, when you retire, you don't just flip a switch and start pulling from RRSP. The smarter move is to withdraw from the RRSP during your early retirement years when your income is lower. So you're paying tax on those withdrawals at a lower rate. This shrinks the RRSP balance before the conversion deadline, which is December 31st of the year you turn 71, when it becomes a RRIF and minimum withdrawals become mandatory. At age 72, that minimum is roughly 5.4% of the prior year end value. So on a $2 million RRIF, you're looking at a required withdrawal rate around $108,000. If you're also collecting CPP and OAS on top of that, your income stacks past the OAS clawback threshold pretty fast. That threshold sits at $95,323 for 2026. And once you cross it, your OAS pension shrinks by 15 cents per every dollar above it until it's fully eliminated around $154,708 for ages 65 to 74. The TFSA is where you'll pull from later, once your RRSP is smaller and your reported income needs to stay low because TFSA withdrawals don't count as income at all. They won't trigger the 15% recovery tax, so they act as a pressure valve when you need cash without pushing your taxable income higher. CPP and OAS are real money, but early retirees can't count on them at the start. You can take CPP as early as 60, but doing that prematurely cuts your payment by up to 36%. So most early retirees leave it alone and bridge the gap with personal savings instead. Delaying CPP from 65 to 70 adds 0.7% per year, and that income is inflation adjusted. Most early retirees use their RRSP and TFSA to cover those early decades and let CPP build until 70. And if you can pick up $20,000 to $40,000 a year through part-time work or consulting in the first 5 years, that income alone can cut your withdrawal pressure enough to meaningfully extend how long the portfolio lasts. The real retirement isn't fixed. It shifts based on your spending, your withdrawal rate, and how many years your portfolio needs to last. Accounts holding the money charge your actual tax bill by tens of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. All this math runs on one assumption, that you never have to sell investments when the prices are down. And that's the part most early retirement plans don't actually solve for. You don't need to predict crashes or time anything specific. You just need 1 to 3 years of living expenses sitting in cash or a GIC. So when the market drops 30%, you spend the cash and leave your portfolio alone until it recovers. Then refill the buffer only once the market climbs back to a high point, not on a fixed schedule. Build that buffer before you retire, not after, because the first 5 years are when sequence of returns risk does the most damage. A $1.5 million portfolio on a $90,000 cash wedge is a clear RRSP to TFSA withdrawal sequence beats a $2 million portfolio with no buffer because it never forces you to liquidate at a loss, which is the actual reason most portfolios fail early. And that $1.5 million target is a standpoint, not a universal number. Residents in Saskatchewan and Manitoba are anticipating closer to $959,000, while Quebec sits around $617,000. So your real number depends on where you live and what you spend. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to watch my next one on the best investments for Canadian professionals. Thanks for watching.